Well, good morning, Milestone. Welcome to Church at Home. My name is John. I'm our small groups pastor here at Milestone, and I just want to extend a great welcome to you. Thanks for joining us this morning. This is supposed to be an interactive experience today, and so as we worship and as the message is going on, and make sure you interact. You hit the raised hands, the thumbs up, put a comment down there, and amen, so we can interact together and we can see each other and just enjoy spending some time together this morning, worshiping together. So I want to take a second, hit our giving time. First of all, I just want to thank everybody for giving. You have been a great blessing. We've been able to continue to do great ministry, and I just want to encourage you to continue to give. There's several ways that you can do that. First of all, is through our website, which is milestonechurch.cc/give. And on there, you can do one-time giving. You can set up recurring giving. You can give by text. You can text an amount to 84321. If you've not done this before, they'll send you back some instructions. You can set it up, and then you can give at any point through text, 84321. Also, if you have a check that you'd like to mail in, you can mail it to Milestone Church at P.O. Box 5509. It's Oak Ridge, Tennessee, 37831. So if you're joining us this morning and maybe you're visiting, we would be excited if you would go to our website, milestonechurch.cc/connect. Fill out the card there. Just let us know that you're visiting with us today, how we can pray for you, minister to you, just to get to know you a little bit better, because we're excited that you've taken the time to join us this morning. But also, if you just have a prayer request, you want to communicate with us, do the same, milestonechurch.cc/connect. Send in your prayer request, and listen, we're going to pray with you, support you, and walk with you during this crazy time that we are in. But we're so excited that you have joined us this morning. Listen, in your living room, your kitchen, wherever you're watching at, worship, sing, engage, because we have a great morning to be with God today. So welcome, Milestone, to Church at Home.
Well, it's going to be a good day. Let's stand up and let's let our praise be a weapon that silences the enemy. For he is worthy to be praised.
Let praise be a weapon that silences the enemy. Let praise be a weapon that conquers all anxiety. And let it rise. Let praise arise. We sing your name in the dark and it changes everything. We sing with all we are and become your victory. So let it rise, let praise arise. We'll see you break down every wall. We'll watch the giants fall. For fear cannot survive when we praise you. The God of breakthroughs on our side. Forever lift him high. All creation cry, God, we praise you. Let faith be the song that overcomes the raging sea. Let faith be the song that calms the storm inside of me. So let it rise. Let faith arise. Let it rise. We'll see you break down every wall. We'll watch the giants fall. For fear cannot survive when we praise you. The God of breakthroughs on our side. Forever lift him high.
like a tidal wave, crashing over me, rushing into me. Your love is fierce, like a hurricane that I can't escape, tearing through the atmosphere. Your love is fierce, you cannot fail. The only thing I found is through it all, you never let me down. You don't hold back, relentless in pursuit. At every turn I come face to face with you. Oh, like a tidal wave, crashing over me, rushing into me. Your love is fierce, like a hurricane that I can't escape, tearing through the atmosphere. Your love is fierce. You chase me down, you seek me out, and how could I be lost with you? Come on, sing that out with me. You chase me down, you seek me out, and how could I be lost when you have called me found? You chase me down, you seek me out, and how could I be lost when you have called me found? Like a tidal wave, crashing over me, rushing into me. Your love is fierce, like a hurricane that I can't escape, tearing through the atmosphere. Your love is fierce, your love is fierce, your love is fierce. Come on, let's give him praise this morning. What a fierce God we have. Come on, we know that we can find our purpose, our strength, our value. We can only put our expectations on God. We find our purpose, our strength in God.
Who am I that the highest King would welcome? I was lost, but He brought me His love for me. Oh, His love for me. Who the sun sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. Sing free at last. Come on. Free at last, He has ransomed
Well, hey, good morning, Milestone Church. This is Pastor Robert. So excited to be here with you today. And I just want to say thanks for joining us online this morning. I pray and hope that you have had an incredible week. I want you to know that we have been praying for you. And one of the things that you can always do to help us spread and get this word out, we believe it's going to be a good word today. I pray and hope that it challenges you, but also encourages you in your walk with Jesus. And you could help others be a part of this simply by hitting the share button. So if you don't mind to do that now, and after you hit the share button, you can go ahead and type in the chat that I shared it, okay? Go ahead and type that in there this morning. Welcome this morning, man. It's going to be a great day. I want to remind you of something or communicate something to you today. On November the 8th, we're going to have our Unite service. And if you're able to come, we encourage you to come to our Morgan County campus at 6:30 Sunday night. It is going to be a great time together. We're going to have exciting worship. We're going to be casting vision for 2021. And we're just going to be reminding each other about all the great things that God's done in 2020. Believe it or not, He's done a lot of great things in 2020 in the midst of our church. And so we're going to celebrate that. And I look forward to seeing you guys there. I want you to know that if you haven't been able to connect with us at one of our campuses, man, we miss you. And we can't wait to see you some moment, sometime. We're praying for you. Let's stay in this together. Let's keep being about the mission. Man, we got a mission that matters. People matter to God. Let's get God's word out and let's share the great things that God's doing and let's share the hope of the world. Jesus is still the hope of the world. So you be reminded of that and you share that hope with other people. Well, I want to ask you a question this morning so you can participate with me a little bit. How many of you ever heard of the book? It's a children's book called The Giving Tree. And if you have, you can go ahead and give me a thumbs up in the chat there. It's a great, wonderful book. A lot of times when you ask parents, what's a great book about giving, they'll refer to The Giving Tree. And it's basically a story about a tree and a boy who eventually grows up and becomes a man and even an older man. But all throughout the book, we see that this tree just gave to the boy. He gave, let him climb up in his tree or in the branches and have a good time and play. He provided shelter and when the boy was tired and protected him and kept him from the sun, gave him cool shade to sleep in. As the boy, became hungry, the tree allowed the boy to eat the apples from the tree and provided that for him. Matter of fact, when the boy needed money later on in life, the tree told the boy that, hey, listen, you can take the apples and you can go and sell them. And he did that. And one day he came back to the tree and said, you know what? I need a house. Man, I want a wife and I want kids and I want to have a house. And the tree was so gracious and so good to the boy that he said, you know what? You can climb up here and you can cut my branches and you can take the wood and you can build you a house. Later on in life, the boy came back and said, you know what? The tree by this time just has his trunk and no branches. And he says, you know what? I'd like to have a boat so that I could sail far away, man. There's just a lot of sorrow, a lot of heartache in the world. If I could just get away, if I had a boat, could I have some wood? And so the tree said, you can have my trunk. And the boy takes the trunk and leaves the tree a stump, and the boy goes and sails away. One day the boy comes back and now he's an old man and he realizes that all these things in life that he thought were going to make him happy and content, he finds out that really what he wanted was companionship, and fortunately the stump was a place to where that he could sit. Now, when I read that story, though, we see that the tree was a giving tree, but I can't help be reminded of how great and how good our Father is. Amen. When I think of the tree, I think about our gracious God who has given us so many wonderful good gifts. Everybody go ahead and type that in the chat. Just go ahead and say, our Father gives good gifts. Like He's given us so many good gifts. He's given us life. He's given us breath. He's given us families. He's given us friends. I mean, we have physical ability ability to go out and to make wealth. I mean, God has blessed us and been so good to us, even in the midst of a pandemic. Now, yes, there's difficulties in life, and yes, there's heartaches in life, and yes, there's sorrow in life, and yes, there's a lot of things that transpire and take place in our world that make you want to go bury your head in the sand at some moments and sometimes. But when we look at God and we see all that God has done for us and how He's forgave us and how He's saved us and how He's set us free from the bondage of sin, I mean, He is a good, good God. But what do we do with these good gifts? How are we utilizing them? I mean, are we using these gifts that God's given us to be a blessing to others? Are we taking what God has given us and using it to further His kingdom, to be about His mission, to make His name known, to make His name great? I mean, how are we utilizing these good gifts that God has given us? Or in the midst of a difficult season, we can certainly say that 2020 has been a difficult year. Go ahead and put in the chat and say, amen. It's been a difficult year. Some people even call it a dumpster fire, right? You know, it's been a mess, right? There's been so many things that have transpired in the year 2020. And we're looking forward to a brighter future, and we're looking forward to a better day. And sometimes in the midst of difficult times and difficult seasons, it's easy to look at what we've been entrusted with, because God has entrusted us all. It's real easy to look and see what we've been entrusted with and say, you know what, should I just keep mine? Should I just hoard it? Maybe I need to go out in the backyard and bury it. You know, I want to make sure that I have and I'm able to take care of mine. And I just want to keep, so that way when He comes back one day, that, you know, at least I've got something to show for it. I mean, is that what God wants us to do in difficult seasons and difficult times? Is that how God wants us to utilize our resources, is to only think about ourselves? Well, fortunately, Jesus speaks a great deal about this, and today we're going to be in the book of Matthew chapter 25, and we're going to look at the parable of the talents this morning. Now, if you guys are still with me, go ahead and say I am. Put it in the chat there. Say I am. I just want to thank you again for being here today as we look at the parable of the talents, because I believe that Jesus wants to talk about our stewardship. I believe that Jesus wants to speak into our lives about the things that have been entrusted to us. Now, if you're following with me in Matthew chapter 25, starting in verse 14, it says this. Jesus begins to teach, and He says, again, the kingdom of heaven can be illustrated by the story of a man going on a trip. And he called together his servants, and he gave money to them to invest for him while he was gone. I want you to think about that the master gave the servants some money. And he wanted them to invest it. He wanted them to utilize it, because one day he was going to be returning. He gave 5 bags of gold to one, 2 bags of gold to another, and 1 bag of gold to the last, dividing it in proportion to their abilities, and then he left on his trip. The servant who received the 5 bags of gold began to immediately invest the money, and soon doubled it. The servant with 2 bags of gold also went right into work and doubled the money. But the servant, I want you to underline this, but the servant who received the 1 bag of gold, what did he do? He dug a hole in the ground and he hid the master's money for safekeeping. Man, here's something that I want you to know, and I want you to write down if you're taking notes there on your couch, or maybe you're driving down the road, you need to pull off the side of the road. You may be in your boat somewhere, or you may be in a cabin somewhere just enjoying some rest and relaxation, but I want you to write this down, because I believe it's an important truth that we need to be reminded of. You see, fear is stewardship's worst enemy. And that's what this servant did with the 1 talent. He was afraid that he was going to lose what had been entrusted to him. See, fear is stewardship's worst enemy. The servant had not been a good steward, because he was afraid that he would lose the master's money, that he wouldn't be able to have a return. But I want to ask you a question this morning. What are the fears that prevent you from being a good and faithful servant? Because I'm going to bring some truth to you here in just a moment about this parable, and there's some principles that we can learn from. But what is it that prevents you from being a good and faithful servant? I mean, we say things like this all the time. We're stewards. We've been entrusted with the gospel. I want you to think about that as a believer in Jesus. Right? God saved us. God forgave us. We put our faith and trust in Jesus, and Jesus gives us a commission to go out and tell the whole world. But what do we do often at times? We say things like, well, I'm afraid that if I talk to people about God, if I share my faith, if I share my story, I'm afraid that people may laugh at me. Are we being a good steward with the gospel? Or maybe sometimes we say, you know what, if I can't tithe, I can't do this, I can't afford, to give, because if I do this, I won't be able to do this, that, and everything else. Fear is the enemy of stewardship. Or maybe we say, you know what, I can't read my Bible today because if I actually did that, I'd have to get up earlier than I want to get up in order to be able to read God's word and let it to be nourishment to my soul. Or sometimes we think along these lines of stewardship, you know what, I can't help, I can't volunteer, I can't be a part of what's happening at church or be a part of the mission of the body of Christ because, I just don't have enough time because I'm just already connected in too many areas. Or maybe it's like, man, we're in a pandemic, for crying out loud. I don't have time for anything. I got to be about me and mines. I mean, the list could go on and on. See, fear is stewardship's worst enemy. And God's called you and us, the body of Christ, to be good stewards with what he's entrusted with. I just want you to think about, man, God's given you physical gifts, right? We have the ability to go out and make wealth. Man, we're able to serve others. We're able to pour into others. Sometimes it's through sweeping the floor. Sometimes it could be pulling weeds. It could be painting rooms. It could be building something. It could be physically doing something for someone else. God's entrusted us. Man, let's use it for his glory. Let's use it for his honor. Man, let's pour into others. Let's be a blessing. God's given you emotional gifts, right? We have the ability to worship. And man, when you do that, man, it's an emotional moment. It's a spiritual moment to where that God is restoring your soul. It gives you a heart of gratitude. And man, it makes you want to raise your hands and just thank God for all that he has done. God's blessed us with spiritual gifts. There are many, the scripture lists of so many gifts that when we entrusted Jesus, when we asked him to be the Lord of our life, that God gifted us for ministry. And God didn't give those gifts to us to go dig a hole somewhere and bury it so that we could keep it for ourselves. God gave us that so that we could be a blessing to others and build the body of Christ. So how are you stewarding the resources that God gave you? How are you doing that this morning? See, this servant, he said, you know what, I'm afraid. I don't want to lose what I have, and I'm just going to dig a hole. And don't dig a hole. Share the wealth, share the love, share the gift that God has entrusted you with. See, we go on in the scripture, and this servant, he said, you know what, after digging a hole, he said, he went to the master when the master returned, and he said, the servant with the one bag of gold came and said, sir, I know you are a hard man, harvesting crops you didn't cultivate. I was afraid I would lose your money, so I hid it in the earth, and here it is. But the master replied, you wicked and lazy servant. Man, my heart, my prayer, one of the things that I'm afraid of oftentimes is that when I stand before the Lord, the last thing that I would want to hear from my Father, the last thing that I would want to hear from my Lord is, you wicked and lazy servant. You think I'm a hard man. Do you harvesting crops I didn't plant and gathering crops I didn't cultivate? Well, you should at least put the money into the bank so that I could have some interest. Take the money from this servant and give it to the one with 10 bags of gold. And listen to what the master says. To those who use well what they are given, even more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who are unfaithful, even what little they have will be taken away. Now throw this useless servant into outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. I want to talk about that just in a moment, because this parable also really implies something else. There's a theme happening right here in Matthew chapter 25. Certainly it has stewardship principles, but it also talks of the master's return. And so here's what I want us to see from these three servants, about these three servants. You can write these down. Here's what I want you to know and want you to understand. I want you to take these truths home with you. When I look and I read this particular passage of Scripture, none of these servants got to choose how much was given to them. I want you to know this, and I want you to get this. See, the master chose. The master chose. I want you to think about that. A lot of us, like we didn't get to choose a lot of things in life. We didn't have a say in a lot of things in life. We grew up in different backgrounds in life. We don't get to choose certain things, but the master has given us all something. See, not all were equal amounts either when I look at that. Some were given 5, one was given 2 or 3, and the other was given 1. Some of us, we're not all given equal amounts when we think about the blessings of God, when we think about the gifts of God, we think about the resources that God has entrusted us with. Not everybody has the same amounts. Some of us have more this morning. Others may have less than others. But here's what I want you to get and I want you to see. No matter what you have, we all have something. Go ahead and type that in the chat because that's important. We all have something. It's important that we get that. It's important we understand that. And the question is who gave you what you have? Well, the master did. See, what we do in life a lot of times is we compare and we say, well, this person has a little bit more. They're able to do more. They're able to bless others because they have this or that. And we complain because we don't think that we have enough often at times. But here's the principle. We should use what we have for the Lord. Whatever you have, use for the glory of God. Whatever God has entrusted you with, use for the glory of God. I was writing this down just before I came to preach to you this morning. Like, listen, we can go Old Testament. If you just have 1 flask of oil left, go ahead and use it. If you just got a few loaves and a few fish, go ahead and use it. You may just have a sling and a few stones, but whatever you have, go ahead and sling that rock. Use it for the glory of God. Maybe you're standing before the Red Sea and all that you have is a staff, a piece of wood in your hand. Go ahead and raise it. Use it for the glory of God. We all have something that God has entrusted us with. It's what your Father gave you. Use it for His glory this morning. Look at the things that God has done. Look at the things that God has given you. Look at the things that God has entrusted you. We all have something. How are we using it? How are we using it? That's a question that we need to ask this morning. We need to get it. We need to understand it. You see, the thing that I also see, another principle in this truth right here from the scripture, is even though that we have different amounts, I don't want you to miss this morning. Even though that they were given different amounts, we all have different amounts. Nevertheless, the requirement was the same of all. And what was that requirement? To be faithful. To be faithful. The requirement to be faithful was the same for all. So I just want to go back to that children's book a minute, that the Giving Tree that I introduced to you in our intro this morning. You see, when I read that book, when I read that story, I believe there's 2 sides of that. I believe that the tree gave, but I believe that the boy simply took. The tree was given, the tree was self-sacrificing, the tree was willing to lay everything down, but the boy only had one objective, is what could I get and what could I obtain and what could I glean and what could I keep for myself. You see, I'm afraid a lot of times, all of us, including myself, I'm afraid a lot of times we're more like that boy than we want to admit. We don't have an attitude of gratitude, and we look at what we can get for ourselves, and we think about how we can save ourselves and maintain ourselves. But here's the truth. God the Father has given us more than we could ever deserve. Matter of fact, here's what I want you to know this morning, that He has given you everything. He even took the created tree and He created and He made a cross for His Son to die, to bleed, to be beaten, ultimately to crucify and die for our sin and our shame and our sorrow. God gave it all. And God gave it all so that we couldn't just hoard what has been given to us. God has blessed us. God has freed us. God has forgave us so that we can go out into the world, so that we can bless our communities, that we can bless our families, that we can bless our friends, that we could serve in our churches to make Jesus known that He's the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Because here's what I want you to know. The Master who's entrusted us with these great gifts is coming back. He's coming back. He will return, just like in the parable. Jesus will return as the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And my heart and my prayer is that we would be good stewards of what God has entrusted. Hey, listen, friend, if you're here today, I want you to think about, how are you stewarding the resources that God has given you? Be a part of what's happening. Be a part of the mission. Be a part of the vision that He's laid out before us. Share the gospel with other people. Use your monetary resources to further God's kingdom. Invest in the kingdom of God. Invest in the local church. Be a part of the mission of reaching people far from God so they can be filled with life in Christ. Because at the end of the day, our heart and our desire is for myself, for you, and everyone else. When we stand before the Lord, instead of saying, "You wicked and lazy servant," that God says, "Well done, my faithful servant." That's my heart. That's my prayer. Hey, listen, friend, if you don't know Jesus today, we want you to know that He loves you, that He made a way for you, and that He gave all for you so that you could be forgiven of your sin. If you'd like to find out more of how to take those next steps, man, check us out on milestonechurch.cc. Find the Connect card there and let us know how we can help you. We'd love to talk to you. We'll even call you on the phone. We can come do whatever, but we can talk to you about how to have a personal relationship with Jesus, and we'd love to help you take a next step. Listen, friends, I'm praying for you today. Be faithful with what God has entrusted you with. And let's be diligent. Let's be blessing. Let's be working, because one day the Master will return, and we're anticipating His coming. Love you guys, and I hope to see you guys soon.
Hey, church family, man, what an incredible service we had today. Just so blessed to be in the presence of God, no matter where you're at. Thank you so much for watching, whether you're at the lake, you're in your house, wherever that may be. Just thank you so much for tuning in with us here today. Remember, if this is your first time watching us, please head on over to our website, milestonechurch.cc/nextsteps. There you'll find our Connect card. Fill that out. We would be so appreciative if you would do that for us. Also, remember, there are multiple ways you can give. You can text 84321. It'll send you a link. You can get that set up real easy and give by text. Or you can also head on over to our website at milestonechurch.cc/give and give that way and set up recurring giving. Man, what an incredible time in the presence of the Lord today. Thank you so much for tuning into our online experience. I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day.